With the brand new Pro Valorant season just about to start on February 16th, I wanted to go into my preseason predictions on who will win each of the most important events of the season. Let's get into the first event. The regional kickoff event that will qualify 2 teams per region for the first Masters event in Madrid. So in the Chinese league, I have EDG obviously taking the first spot, as they have had by far the most experience in the Chinese scene up to date, with Kang still looking like a monster with the op during this offseason. The other spot is a toss-up to me since I haven't really been able to take a deep look into the other Chinese teams, but I'll give it to Dragon Ranger Gaming, the newly ascended team that will shock everyone and make it to the first Masters. This is mainly because just a month ago, they fought through the tough Ascended tournament together, while most of the other teams have just been able to scrim together during the offseason to prepare. Dragon Ranger could have a huge advantage because of that, and start off the season with a nice win streak to make it to Madrid. For the Pacific League, I have the Paper Rex clearing their matches and making it to yet another major event, even after the departure of Jing, since the person replacing him isn't much of a downgrade, as Minyet is a really flexible player who has insane mechanics that'll fit right into Paper Rex's playstyle. The second team to qualify from this region will be the new Korean Kings, T1, who looked like a solid Pacific team last year, but with a few upgrades with Rossi and Xcrit joining the roster, as well as moving Carpe to IGL, will give them much more fluid playstyle. That'll push them to the next level this season, as they still have a great duelist and Saya player on the team. And this will be their time, as DRX will fall early in the season as they've made a few changes that don't really look like real upgrades for them. Now on to who will qualify in the highly competitive EMEA league. And for me, this is the hardest league to predict, as the talent has been spread out quite a bit. But of course, like the other 2 regions we looked at, Europe also has an obvious shoe-in for the first qualification spot. That being the juggernaut Fnatic, who has stayed completely the same over the offseason after looking unstoppable for almost the entire last season. So right now, until proven wrong, they have to be considered a top team in the game right now. But for the second spot, it's really up in the air, with only Gentlemates, Koi, and BBL looking to have zero hope to make it. But in this mess of a league, I'd have to give the second spot to Foot, who has just improved throughout the offseason, with a perfect pickup as CNED to complement the already Masters-worthy core of last year. Adding someone with superstar potential like CNED might have moved this team from top 4 in the region to top 2, qualifying them for Masters Madrid. Now, onto my home region, the Americas. And unlike every region, I don't feel like there's a real clear top team, mostly due to the explosion that was EG immediately after winning the World Championship, which has made this kickoff tournament a must-watch, as both spots are really up in the air. But of course, there are a few frontrunners that look like the teams to fear going into the tournament. That being Sentinels, Leviathan, NRG, and Loud. The unfortunate thing is that 3 of them are in one group, which I have Sentinels and Leviathan making it out, with Loud struggling early due to the loss of Asfas. But I only have Leviathan making it to Masters Madrid, as I believe Sentinels will lose out on glory because of my number 1 team, NRG, as they look like a great all-around team that can hit the ground running early in the season, making it to Masters Madrid. But then again, teams like Cloud9 and G2 could surprise us in the single elimination portion of the bracket and steal the spotlight. But now, who out of these 8 teams do I have winning the first Masters event of the year? Well, it's a hard one with the competition split in 2, those top tier teams that hadn't changed much over the offseason, and the newly minted powerhouse rosters, hoping to start off their season with a win. But in the case of the first major event of the year, it has to go to an old favorite, Paper Rex, who, after falling short all last year, will have what it takes this year to take home a Masters trophy. Of course, it'll be sad without Jing, but their team overall just looks like they can keep up with any team technically, as well as being able to throw off even the best team's game plans. And that will just continue to be the case, being the reason why they'll finally win it all. But now let's get into the regional leagues. And first, we'll move over to the EMEA. For this league, I actually have 4 favorites to win it: Foot, Team Liquid, Na'Vi, and of course Fnatic. These teams have solid rosters all around. Team Liquid won last year and looks to have an even stronger roster with the best of Apex, joining Nats and Yampi, as well as Na'Vi being the exact same as the FPX core that won Masters Copenhagen, with Artist rejoining them. But ultimately, I have Fnatic taking home what they should have last year, winning the league trophy. As this team is just stacked to the brim with top tier talent, that I don't think anyone in the EMEA can really contend. Next, let's move to the newest league in China. And like I said, I don't really know too much about this region, but I know we'll get a much better idea once the season starts. While I did watch a little bit of the teams competing, it just seems like outside of Edward Gaming, no team can really top what they've been up to. As this roster has stayed together and Kang has just been a clear favorite in the region. And I believe that they'll just continue to grow as a roster, competing in a higher and higher level all throughout the season that no one in China can really compete with, as they were able to finish in the top 6 in both Masters Tokyo and Champions last year, taking maps off of Loud, EG, and Paper Rex, as well as beating Na'Vi. Until someone proves me wrong, EDG seems to be the clear choice for winning the inaugural Chinese League trophy. Now let's move to the Pacific League, where the top teams in the region are going through their own instability, possibly shaking up the whole region, especially with so many teams making major roster changes. And like I said, you should be looking out for T1 with the addition of Forsaken's older brother, Xcrit, and also the recently ascended Pacific team, Bleed, who has Ye as well as Scary, who's one of the most underrated players in the world right now. Like seriously, watch out for these two teams this season. But ultimately, I have Paper Rex winning the Pacific. After their loss in the grand finals of Champs and a 3rd place finish in Masters Tokyo last year, they look poised to still hold the top spot in the region, even after Jing had to leave. With Munyet, they look to continue their dominance in the region after the kickoff wins, even though they weren't super impressive during the off-season tournaments, losing to Sentinels twice. But you can never trust a Paper Rex off-season performance. Ultimately, it doesn't seem like any team can really challenge the level of play Paper Rex can do at their highest level, being consistently considered a top 3 team since 2022. For the Pacific League, I still feel like there's a pretty clear gap between the top teams in the region and everyone else, but I could see a couple teams coming out of nowhere to threaten Paper Rex. Now we finally move to the league I am most familiar with, the Americas League, and this is where most of my uncertainty lies. Like all the teams I stated previously as favorites, it'll be hard to tell who really hits their stride and can take matches off of each other, as Energy, Leviathan, Sentinels, and Loud are all powerhouse teams that look to continue and build success this season. So do I think one of these teams I just listed will win the Americas League? No. I'm going to throw about 99% of America's fans off and say Cloud9. Yes, Cloud9, one of the most confusing teams over the past year or so. I believe that Cloud9 will finally live up to their potential and win the Americas League like they were so close to last year. With new players in Oxy and Whippy, I think Vanity has the strongest team collectively to take on the season. And while I think the beginning of the season will be rough, I think after a few matches together, I can see them coming out on a surprising run like they did last year to upset teams that were projected to be levels above them. The main reason is I think they have a roster that can flex into different roles and adapt well with how the meta will change throughout the season. So ultimately, I have the upset pick of Cloud9 winning the final regional league. So go ahead and yell at me in the comments. You know I have to spice up my picks. Now we move to Masters Shanghai, which happens halfway through the regional leagues. So the tournament will reward the teams that got off to a hot start in the league to maybe translate that to a Masters trophy. And this might be a little bit of hopium, but I believe EDG actually has a really good case to win the Masters trophy in their home country. As each time they've appeared in a major international event, they've just looked better and better. And I believe that after their appearance in Masters Madrid early in the season, where I predict they'll have their highest finish yet, that Masters Shanghai will be the Masters where they finally put China on top, winning a hard-fought 5-map series against Fnatic. So ultimately, I have Kang and EDG taking home the Masters trophy for China in China. And I swear that's my last crazy pick. Or is it? Now onto the final event of the 2024 VCT season, Champions. Who will be the 4th world champion in history? And this is where I'm going with the previous year's most dominant team, Fnatic. After having a quieter season for their standards, I predict that this is where they'll finally find their hot streak to get back to their early 2023 form, where they went on their 2-trophy run. In Champions, they'll pick up their 3rd trophy ever and capture their biggest goal, being crowned world champions finally. But of course, at this point in the season, I have no idea who will mesh with all the changes, but I could see NRG making it really far in the tournament as well, as Demon 1 and Ethan strive for their 2nd Champions win. But I don't believe that they'll have as good of a season as they did last year. but I have Fnatic winning the biggest Valorant event of the year. But those are my entire preseason predictions for all the Tier 1 Valorant events of the year. They're probably going to be so wrong, but at least we can all come back here and make fun of those picks. But put your predictions down in the comments. I'd love to see them. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe, as we'll be continuing to post videos throughout the entire season, analyzing pivotal matches, diving into stats, creating mini documentaries about all different things in Pro Valorant history, which you can actually watch one of them right here.